Okay, so Warframe released in March 2013, and since then has undergone a few massive overhauls. Not only to the game's visual design, but to the combat and movement system as well, which in my opinion has created something unique and dare I say beautiful. My name is Scorch, and in today's video we'll be discussing whether Warframe is worth playing in 2022. I'd like to just say before we dig in that I'll be discussing my thoughts and opinions of the game, so please take everything I say with a grain of salt, and if I say something incorrect, please let me know in the comments down below, and hopefully we can have a conversation about it, and come out having made some new friends. Thank you. It's been 9 years since I logged on, and so much has changed. Today's video we'll be discussing what it's been like coming back, but if anyone wants me to make a video going through the changes that they've made, for example, the whole combat system got reworked, please let me know and I'll do my best to make a video on it. Anyway, I hopped into the game and said hi to Twitch chat, and then started working out how to play the game again. I have some okay-ish gear that I must have grinded 4 years ago, which is nice, so I decided to lean into that, as generally with MMOs, gear is a good place to start. Fair warning here, Warframe is massive, and includes complicated systems that dictate the way things work. For example, the mission system. In basic terms, on your ship you have a navigator, or star chart as it's referred to. If you access your star chart, you will be able to see all the missions and content available inside. From there, you can select which planet you would like to visit, and from there, select which mission you would like to do. As you do more missions, the more you will unlock. I had something called a relic, which was kind of like a loot crate, except you do certain types of missions called Fisher missions to open them. I think this is actually a pretty good way of doing this. There are loads of different types of relics, so you'll always have an option of doing different missions. The game will always have rotating Fisher missions. From what I can tell, there's always 5 available that after a certain time frame will switch to allow other relics to be opened. So I'm farming away looking for something called Oricon cells. I need these to build a weapon I'd like to try, when suddenly a random enters my stream and starts talking to me about Warframe. I love this. You know who you are, and if you're watching this, when are we playing next again, man? This was an opportunity for me to learn and gain experience in this very complicated world. This player was obviously very versed in the game and was explaining things to me very well. This is not uncommon for Warframe veterans. Every single veteran player I've asked a question to has been more than helpful. There is so much in this game, and if it weren't for people like this, dedicated players who enjoy nerding out over the game, Warframe wouldn't be what it is today. Swiftly moving on, he gives me a brief explanation of relics and we hop into some Fisher missions together. I felt pretty useless, however this wasn't really a problem as we were just farming relics. The objective is to be as quick as possible so you can pop relics like they were M&Ms. Once you've opened your relics of choice, you can then get into building. In a very brief explanation, in order to build new items you need blueprints, which can be found in various ways, but the most common way is through relics. Do missions, acquire relics, do Fisher missions, get blueprints, make cool gear. Sounds simple, right? Maybe not as simple as you think. You acquire relics by doing certain missions. They drop at the end as a reward. You will need to farm a lot of these, as having one relic does not guarantee you the blueprint you want. Plus, you will want multiple items from one type of relic, as well as some items from another, which, like all relics, won't drop every time, so it goes without saying that this will take up a lot of hours. As far as I know, this is the best way of obtaining blueprints, which, once you have found all the other items needed for whatever the blueprint is for, you can build it. Sometimes, the components needed to build gear is minimal, using resources picked up in pretty much every mission. For more powerful weapons called prime weapons, you will typically need parts that are harder to obtain. Some of those parts can be found in relics as well as other places. Weapons and small items aren't too bad. The grind is a little less because all you need is the blueprint for the item and the components needed to make it. As stated, some weapons may differ by having harder to obtain components, but at least that's all you need. Warframes, on the other hand, require a bit more. To craft a new Warframe, you at least need 3 things: new optics, chassis, and systems. There are Warframe-specific versions of each of these needed to build the corresponding Warframe. All of those frame-specific items need to be built, which means they need a blueprint, which means you need relics. Once you have all those items, you can make a new frame. Sounds great, right? Sort of. Different relics can be found on different planets, some only on specific missions. On top of that, most items are unbuildable until you reach a high enough level, which the game does not tell you, so I only realized this after hours and hours of grinding. Now, I admit, I should have researched how to unlock new things long before attempting to, but should I have to? If you are new, or still within the first 100 hours or so, you will 100% have to use the internet, mainly the wiki, which I'll link down below. As unless you are very dedicated and willing to put up with the struggle, there is little chance that you will figure everything out on your own. The game does not tell you. So the question remains, should you, as a player, really have to do a deep dive online into techniques and ways of obtaining things that the game really should just simply explain better? Some games do have things that you need to research, but they do it better, in a way where a dedicated player can choose to go looking for the rarest items and be rewarded should he decide to take it that seriously. Because if you're going to go that far, there is a good chance that you may have to look up some guides and maybe look at a wiki. But the thing is, they make it a choice, not a necessity. As good as Warframe is, I don't think it's okay to design systems in a way that almost forces a new player to have to look them up online, just to work out even the most basic ways of doing things. The problem is, the tutorial only explains maybe 10% of what the game has to offer, making it very hard for new players to get into the game. Which brings me to the reason I stopped playing in the first place. This game released in 2013. I was 12 at the time and had the attention span of a goldfish, so big and complicated things were scary. Speaking of big and complicated, the tutorial to Warframe was, is, and hopefully always will be the exact opposite. Instead, it's simple, easy to follow, and does a great job of explaining everything, but once you finish, that's it. The game relinquishes control and says, here you go, work it out. I was swamped with an overwhelming amount of content which I had no idea how any of it worked, so after my attention span was over how amazing the movement was, I logged off and never touched it again. I'll be honest, I love playing this game, at least at the moment I do. It has a great community willing to help, which is good because without that I don't think this game would survive. And we have evidence that they can teach players new systems, quite well in fact. I decided to watch a video of the tutorial in its current state, and it's amazing. Everything is presented to the player in a way that isn't overwhelming. It allows you to learn the mechanics of the game by giving you a use for them. Instead of just saying this is how you would do this, which would never give you a chance to learn, and instead gives you a need to do this, to achieve this goal. Giving the player a physical situation where they need to use whatever system is being taught, thus creating motivation. Now, as mentioned, that unfortunately doesn't last. However, the game is almost 10 years old and still talked about and played to this day, so they obviously have to have gotten something right. Let's get one thing straight. I think the combat in Warframe is a masterpiece. They've designed something that makes you feel like an absolute badass, whilst making it easy to pick up as a new player, but fun enough to keep challenging you as a veteran. Paired with a stellar movement system, furthermore adding to the feeling of being a literal space ninja. With the dev team having such titles as Unreal Tournament 03 and 04 under their belt, it's no wonder they were able to create such fluid feeling movement mechanics. Just like the movement team, the level design guys have kept up the trend and designed something unique by creating procedurally generated tile sets. What is a tile set, you might ask? Well, a tile set is a procedurally generated set of rooms. What the level designers have done is made hundreds of different rooms, then written a code that gives you a different combination of rooms each time you load into a mission, thus helping to create a more unique experience even if you're grinding one specific mission for gear. Every planet has a different set of room aesthetics, so that way they all feel different, which is awesome. So we've talked about the level design and movement. Now let's talk about what you're actually moving around inside the levels. Warframe has an extensive amount of weapons and gear for you to unlock. There is a reason people put thousands of hours into this stuff. Although it is very grindy, it is also very rewarding. Once you've decided on something that you want, getting that item feels good. It feels like you've worked for it, and it feels like it was worth it, as many items in Warframe play very differently. Speaking of very different, so is each Warframe. At the time of making this video, I can count over 40 different Warframes on the wiki, which basically means over 40 different classes. Some of my favorite frames include Excalibur, Ash, and Rhino when I'm feeling tanky. I enjoy the gunplay and don't use many abilities, so these frames suit my playstyle. But if that's not your thing, don't worry, Warframe's got you covered with virtually anything you can ask for. Some frames use status effects like electricity or freeze, while others rely on deception, creating duplicates of themselves or teleporting. Others just swing big hammers and kill things. One frame even has the ability to choose between one of 4 buffs every time you use the ability, which allows them to be effective both in a team and in solo runs. It's not just the large selection that makes the game popular either. Warframe runs really well and looks great. Now, when I say looks great, I mean the graphics in general. The art style I found to be a bit of a personal preference, but for me, I've found the frames I like and will work towards gear I find pleasing, which is good that the game gives you that option. But anyway, getting off track, they've done a great job optimizing the game so it can be played on different systems. And not just high and low end PCs either. But the game has since released on both PS4 and 5, Xbox One and Series X, even on the Nintendo Switch, with the devs promising to add cross-platform and cross-saves later on. Which brings me to my next point. The game is still being updated and worked on to this day. In fact, Digital Extremes dropped a trailer for something called Warframe not too long ago, which is a new project they're working on. Warframe has a great team behind it. Despite their flaws, they're passionate about what they create, and let's hope we see that in the future. There is so much here to talk about, and if anyone is interested, I've created a list of potential video ideas. Let me know in the comments if you want to see any of this, or if you have your own ideas of something you want to see. Let me know and I'll do my best to make a video on it. Any comment will be seen, read, and appreciated. Thank you. But for now, I'm going to leave it there as this script is getting a little bit long. To put it simply, coming back to Warframe has been a massive learning experience, but ultimately a pleasant one. I give it a 9 out of 10 for movement and combat, a 2 for the story, and an 8 for the game's community. Speaking of communities, come join mine over at twitch.com/scorch_hdtv. I'll see you there. For those of you that stuck around, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell to see any future uploads. And peace out, homies.